I'm very, very, very excited to present the next student because I really, truly enjoy his presentation when we saw it the first time in class. It's very, very special. And also it's very special to um, say farewell to this student because he's been with us uh, for a long time. He was one of our BGGI uh, graduate before the master. I think he graduated in 2013. And then he went to New York, and we rescued him from New York. We want him back so bad, and we convinced him, and we're very glad that he decided to come back and spend this other year with us, and he did an amazing, amazing job. I would like everybody to welcome Jared Anderson. Jared advisor was Carl Riley, which is here with us. Please welcome Carl. And in the panel, we have the pleasure to have Susan Egan again. Okay. Jared.
Thank you so much. Before we get started with my presentation, I just want to take a brief moment to thank everyone that's involved in this incredible program, my peers, but also the amazing faculty who have shared so much of their time with us, and the incredible staff that works so hard on a daily basis to make this program a reality. It truly is one of a kind, and it's been an honor to be back. Also, a huge thank you to Marco and Danilo for having me back at the Institute this year. It's been an unforgettable experience. And one of my favorite parts of this year was working on this project, and my thesis is called Freedom of the Wilderness. And it's a 5-movement piece that features 4 dancers and 10 musicians. And the message behind this piece is to promote the awareness for environmental conservation. I grew up in a very beautiful part of Central Oregon, surrounded by very pristine wilderness areas, vast forests, lots of rivers, huge mountains. And growing up in this area, I learned a lot about protecting the environment and feel very passionate about these issues. I think that often in today's society, environmental issues can seem very abstract because most people live or reside in urban or suburban areas and don't have an opportunity to get to know a landscape in the way that I have. So I hope with this project to share my experience and inspire people to visit these places and also protect their environments both locally and on a larger scale. I also want to share this idea of being a steward of the earth or steward of the land. I think often when we say the word community, we just think of a community of humans, which is understandable, and there's much work that needs to be done amongst our human community. But I want to raise awareness for this idea of a broader community. I think we are just as interconnected and dependent upon the rivers and the streams and the lakes and the mountains and the forests and need to take care of them. So as I said before, this project is a collaborative piece that features dance. And I worked with a close friend of mine, Jane Paley, who I met in New York when I moved there 3 years ago. And a little bit about what inspired me to do a project that involved dance. When I moved to New York 3 years ago, I started to go to a lot of modern dance shows and was really inspired by what they do in that art form. I saw so many parallels to what we do as jazz musicians, both as improvisers and composers, and saw a lot of possibilities for connections between these two genres. I also find it very interesting that jazz started out as a genre that was so intertwined with dance, but has moved largely away from that, and wanted to experiment with how I can make my music connected to dance and relevant to today's jazz culture and also our society. So the 4 dancers in this piece are Jane Paley, the choreographer, Kyle Philly, Alexandra Subota, and Chuck Wilt, who all live in New York City. So this piece started out, as I said, as a 2-part collaboration, but quickly expanded into more of a 3-part collaborative project. As I was deciding how to present this final work, I was toying with the idea of doing a live performance or video, and I eventually settled on the idea of doing it as a video in hopes that it would reach a wider audience rather than doing a one-off performance. And after deciding this, I was presented with quite a few logistical issues, mostly people's schedules, because this is such a large group. It was hard to find a time where all 14 or 15 people could be in the same location to rehearse and record the work. And also the issue of space. I really wanted to use Mix 1 since that studio was so generously provided for us. but it wasn't quite the right aesthetic to film the dance piece. So I decided to actually film the dance and record the music separately, and also during this time hired a videographer who was a mutual friend of Jane's. Her name is Ashley Bickford. And I had seen a little bit of her work before and was really blown away by it. But this turned out to be a really actually happy accident. Ashley really took the role of a third collaborator and really shaped the music and shaped the choreography. She herself is actually a dancer, so she really understands or understood at a high level what was going on. And she, just to give a more specific example, is responsible for all the transitions between each movement, which is something that I didn't think about, but she brought up many ideas which I would have otherwise not have considered. The instrumentation of this piece features a large group, and I chose this because I wanted to have a broad musical palette to help me represent the many colors that occur in nature, specifically where I grew up, and also to challenge myself. I've never composed for a group larger than your typical jazz quartet or jazz trio, so this gave me an excuse to study some of my favorite composers, which is really exciting. So here's a list of all the incredible musicians who I'm forever thankful for. It was their dedication and hard work was extraordinary, and it was really special to have them as part of this project. You also should mention that my dad was a part of the project and recorded, which was special in another way as well. I just want to go over the process, our compositional process as a whole before I get into the nuts and bolts of each piece. So we experimented with 4 different methods in composing this work. The first is what I would call the traditional method, in which I composed music and then Jane set dance to that. The second is the reversal of that, so she composed movement or dance and then I wrote music to that. The third is what I would call simultaneous composition, so we both worked together to write the pieces. And then the last is improvisation, which we experimented with the dancers and musicians responding to each other. And some of the best work in this piece came from that, specifically from the dancers responding to the musicians because they were recorded separately. So the first movement of this piece is called Wilderness, and it starts out with an arpeggio theme, which to me represents the motion of climbing. And I was thinking of a particular hike that I used to do a lot in my youth, where you climb slowly up into the mountains and you can't really see where you're going. There's lots of large boulders and trees, and it feels very much like you're entering another world or realm. And I wanted to invoke this kind of mysterious feeling. So I used some harmony at the beginning that is slightly ambiguous. There's either 2/3 or no thirds, and it'll come into view for a second. You think you hear a tonality, and then it dissipates again. And I came up with this first 4-bar vamp, and then Jane set movement to that, upon which I based the rest of the piece. And I took a lot from also Messiaen, inspirationally. And we filmed this on a hilltop in Vermont, which is something that I wasn't planning to doing, but I'm very glad that we ended up going this route. So here's a short clip of Wilderness. you. The second movement of this piece is called Adagio and was based on the Adagio sections of classical and ballet music. And I was thinking of a particular area of forest where I grew up that has been killed by wildfire or beetle infestation. And it's a very interesting place to visit. There's lots of the trees are all still standing. They're these huge silver trees, but they're completely dead. And in the wind, they kind of creak and shriek, and it's a very mysterious or eerie place to be, especially at night or by yourself. And it feels very lonely, so I wanted to capture kind of that feeling in this piece, which is a solo piece featuring Jane, and also violin, some excellent violin playing by Yuri Namkung. And we filmed this piece at night in a barn, which is something that I wasn't planning on doing initially, but very glad that Ashley had kind of the vision for this, because I think it came out very special. And so here's a short clip of that piece. Thank you. The third movement is called Trees/Wildfire, and this is inspired by a totally opposite forest of trees than the last piece. It's inspired specifically by this tree where I grew up called ponderosa pines. As you can see, they're very tall and have a rich brown orange bark with vibrant green needles. And as you walk through them, it feels very open. You can see the understory between the trees is very wide open. It feels like you're walking through, to me, a big cathedral or hall. And it feels very communal. The forest is very healthy, very much alive. You can feel that things are very connected. So to help orchestrate this feeling musically, I chose to base it upon the Abakwa or Bembe rhythm that we've been working with this year. And also took a lot of inspiration from two of Danilo's pieces, Gratitude and Reflections on the South Sea. And the choreography in this piece is more structured and rhythmic, which you'll see. And there's also a second half, which we won't hear today, but called Wildfire, which I tried to orchestrate this, actually the feeling of the forest being lit on fire. And I wanted to include this because wildfire is a big problem in the Northwest, and it's something that's a natural part of the ecosystem, but something that humans have devastatingly offset, which is allegorical of many environmental issues that we have. So here's a short clip of the beginning part, Trees. Thank you. The fourth movement is called the Alvord, and the Alvord is a desert that you can find in eastern Oregon. And it's not a sandy desert, it's more clay and salt based, so the earth is very cracked, like there's lots of these huge cracks across the soil, and it feels very otherworldly when you're there. And I wrote this piece based specifically on this picture what some friends of mine took. And at night there, the stars really wrap around you fully. It feels very much like you're in outer space or on another planet. And so I hope to capture this feeling of being somewhere else or on another planet in this piece. And I almost, a little bit to show how the collaboration influenced the project, I almost threw away the initial idea, but after showing Jane the rough draft, she forced me to stick with it, which I'm really thankful for. It's turned out as one of my favorite pieces. And the intro came first, and then she put choreography to that, which helped me create the rest of the piece. And this is heavily inspired by Ravel, particularly his Daphne and Chloe suite. And it features two dancers. It's a duet, which is reflected musically in the piano and clarinet. And there's a lot of free improvisation in this piece. And as far as the cinematography goes, Ashley used a lot of teleporting shots, which you'll see, which I think adds to that feeling of a distorted reality or something kind of otherworldly. And she also used a green spotlight, which adds a very eerie effect to the whole video. So here's a short clip of the Alvord. Thank you. This last movement is called alpenglow, and alpenglow is the word for a unique phenomenon that occurs in mountainous areas. Just before sunrise, it'll still be dark out, but the mountains are so much taller than the horizon that they actually catch the light before it comes up. And it's this very unique purple, blue, orange color. Definitely recommend getting up early if you're ever in a mountainous area to witness this. And so to orchestrate this musically, the end with the dance, the whole piece has the arc of a sunrise. And we composed this piece together simultaneously, which was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot about orchestration in this piece from Maria Schneider, and also took a lot of ideas from Eric Satie. And one thing, a little bit of a backstory, the videographer and choreographer both insisted on filming this at sunrise, which is something I was actually first against of doing, in fear that it would be maybe too literal. But I'm very glad that we went this route and that they were adamant about doing so. It turned out incredible and is something that's very unique. So I'll show a short clip from the beginning, and then a short clip from the end, which is the end of the whole project. Sorry to cut it so short. And here's the clip of the end. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Just quickly, in the future, I'd like to do a performance of this work specifically, hopefully in Boston or New York. And I'd also like to attempt to put together a tour of the national parks where we actually perform some of this music in the places where it was inspired by. I've been to a lot of national parks and they actually have stages which are kind of go to waste. And I'd like to compose more for this group. If I could do it another project, I would have the videographer involved at an earlier stage. She came into the picture when things musically and choreography with the dance were pretty solid, in a pretty solid state. So it'd be fun to have her at an earlier stage when things are a little bit more liquid. And if you'd like to watch the full video, it's available on my website, which is jaredhendersonband.com/freedom of the wilderness, or you can just search my name in that title. And lastly, but not least, I'd like to thank everyone that was involved in this amazing project from the bottom of my heart. Your hard work and dedication went above and beyond. And a special thanks to Danilo, Marco, Ben Street, Terry Lynn, Susan Hagen, John Patitucci, my mom, and Bruno, and also my advisor, Carl Riley. Thank you so much. And of course, the biggest thanks to the choreographer, Jane Paley, who's here today, and my cinematographer, Ashley Bickford. Thank you.
Wow, wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Who would like to start?
Trying to break it up the order here. Wow, Jared, that was just amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing all that work and putting so much heart into it that we felt, you know. And just watching your development over well, I would say the year, but for me, since you were in high school,
Yeah.
it's been amazing. You've really made me feel, what's the word? Just the satisfaction from, being a teacher.
Thank you.
Students like you, we can really watch the development. It makes me feel like, I'm doing the right thing by not just touring and actually trying to pass on something to the next generation. So thanks for reaffirming that for us. How did that last shot? How did you guys get that last shot?
Ashley, she had her assistant film cinematographer. They brought a drone camera, which they said like in a text message, like, yeah, we're gonna bring the drone, and I was like, great, but like had no idea what that, I really didn't have much of a vision. Like she went so far above and beyond my vision for the film, but yeah, it's like looks like a little helicopter. It looks like a remote control helicopter kind of. Goes up in the
Yeah.
air like up to a quarter mile. So he actually filmed that opening shot as well with the fog and the mountains.
Wow, amazing. And the beginning of that last piece just really spoke to me. Amazing work. Also the what is it called? The Alvord?
Mm-hmm.
Alvord, yeah. So the I don't know. I mean, you're here too, so but just the beginning, the intro to that. Can you explain just the meaning of the dance part, the correlation with the dragging of the body and?
I don't have a specific meaning for the dragging of the body, but I kind of wanted it to feel like you're kind of alone in this ravaged landscape, or sort of like you're personifying this area, like the desert and the stars. It wasn't supposed to be like he was dead or something, but it was supposed to, I wanted it to feel a little bit eerie and a little bit creepy, and I think that helped that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, it did. And also, what I was wondering when I saw, her carrying him,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wow, what is striking me about that? I couldn't put my finger on it until I realized that all the dance that I've seen has the man always carrying the woman. So it was so cool to see it the opposite way and not even realize I was seeing it the opposite way, until.
He's also like 6'6", so it was no small feat.
Yeah, wow. So I mean, I've done a little composing for dance, so it generally has worked in my experience where you're constantly trying, and even for plays or whatever, you're constantly trying to fit the music into the other person's vision, and it's nice to see it, feel like more of a real collaboration, and it was making me think about it would be great to see a dance company that is actually run and owned by both the choreographer and the composer, opposed to I haven't seen much of that. Maybe I'm, just not informed, but I haven't seen it where it's a true collaboration with the whole company, and I just felt like that's something that you could, explore since you did such a great job with this. It would be kind of radical for you to think about having, your own dance company or.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love to.
With somebody else, So, thanks so much and congratulations.
Thank you.
I know this is a little bit off the format because she's not in the panel, but since Jane is here, I would like to ask her about your point of view in collaborating the choreography of this.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I am so honored to be here and was so excited when Jared asked me to be a part of this. It was an amazing process and so awesome to live out the dream in his mind. What I think was really awesome was that we experimented with so many different ways of the collaboration, kind of what he mentioned, whether he wrote the music first or I came in with the phrase, or we kind of sat right next to each other and did it together. What was also really interesting was that Jared kind of had this image in his head, but I think wanted to let it be a little bit more abstract. So he kind of let me have my image in my head as well, and then we'd get together and say like, oh, we're thinking this, and they just kind of went together so nicely. For example, like the dragging in that piece, the second that I heard that music, I fell in love. I listened to it like 24/7, and I just had this image with when the horns came in of like the partner dancing and kind of feeling like when you're with somebody and then you're also alone, which I think also speaks with like the bigger idea of the desert, right? Of kind of that eerie feeling when you're alone there. And so it was really awesome to kind of work together and see how our ideas just really kind of inspired one another and yeah, made it even bigger, which was really awesome.
Thank you.
Great job. A lot of
Thank you.
really hard work went into this, and it's clear. I liked that this pushed you to write for a larger group, because this had you outside your comfort zone the whole way.
Yeah.
But you just did it, you know. And I thought the presentation, you were great with your explanations of each movement, how and why they came to be. It made me want to go to Oregon and see
Yeah,
these
you should.
places, you know. That was truly inspirational. And I think that this was your project, obviously, but a quality of a really great leader is one who collaborates, who listens to the people working with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought you did an exceptional job of that. You didn't just go in and say, this is my music, you're going to dance to it, and I want it to look like this, you know, because that just doesn't work. And my husband is in the military, and as he has risen in rank, he's noticed, you know, the best leaders are really the ones who listen to everybody. And then you can pick and choose, and there are times you can say no. But people will bring ideas that you haven't thought of. And I think that you were so good with that and listening to Jane, who's clearly fabulously talented, and your videographer and everyone. And so many times in your presentation you said, I didn't envision this, but I'm so glad I listened to people. And I think that is part of what made this so spectacular. And
Definitely.
I want you to do this in the national parks.
Okay.
And I want you to do this, each piece in the location that inspired it,
Yeah.
and
that'd be
film it
special.
is for like another installment, you
Yeah.
know, and keep moving forward with this as well, because there's so much here. And, you know, I just was in Acadia National Park last
Yeah.
week, and everyone there's this, well, you would know, because you were very much, you know, hiking and things when you were a child. Everybody flocks to these places to see nature and the mountains or the ocean or the birds or whatever. And you would have a great audience to be able to inspire people to then take this and go out into the world with it. So I think the national parks thing is brilliant. I think
Thank
you've
you.
got to do that.
Thank
But
you.
really wonderful job.
you,
Fantastic.
Susan.
And so much hard work. I'm
Thank
proud
you.
of you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jared. Amazing.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you as a student in the comp class. I could hear some of the ideas
Yeah.
coming to fruition. I want to tie in a little bit what Susan said about being a great leader, being able to listen. And that's also, you know, when I see you, the way you went about this project is also the way you go about your bass playing. And that's why it's so good. That's why your bass playing is so excellent, because you can listen to the big picture and hear everybody. You listen to everybody in the band, and you know, that's
Working on it.
lifetime work right
We're
there.
working on it, yeah.
So fantastic. I want to bring something else up.
Mhm.
My son, Jonathan, who is 27 years old, chose a couple of years ago to become an environmental scientist.
Oh,
And he's entering a PhD program in chemistry and geology in environmental studies at Boulder, Colorado.
oh, nice.
Right now he's in the mountains in Colorado doing water samples and snow samples. But my point is that as a scientist, you know, it's pretty grim, the environmental situation, and we don't want to read about it. And so one of the big challenges for for environmental scientists is how to reach the public. And as I'm sitting here, I think we should include scientists in this pool of dance and composition, music, and video. You know, they should be part of it. And he could have been a musician, but he shows that path, and he's very passionate. He loves the nature. He's up in the mountains all the time, and I'm going to show these projects to him, because he and his friends, they're the same generation as you, and have very similar ideas, you know, but in different areas. So collaboration with
Yeah,
scientists.
I'd love to meet him. That'd be,
Yeah,
maybe we could really make a difference.
yeah, absolutely. To reach out. Thank you. Fantastic project.
Thank you so much, Bruno, for all your help too.
Congratulations, Jared
Thank
and
you.
Jane and Ashley. There's so much that I would like to say, but first of all, what a pleasure to work with you as you develop this project. And something that Susan said, I'd like to echo your willingness to go outside of your comfort zone and make it home. So much of what you did here was a first for you. You know, the size of the ensemble, the instrumentation, the musical language, and the level of collaboration. It's something, collaboration is something that you should not take for granted. The things that you pull together, people in different places, and to figure out how best to render the idea, whether it's going to be outside or in a studio, or all of those facets of the work had to be negotiated and decided in a group. Sometimes a collaborative team of 3 is easier because 2 people can vote against 1. In my experience, sometimes that's the easiest when you have odd numbers. But my favorite kind of collaboration is sort of what you did here, when everybody comes to a blank page together with an idea, and the idea is given to each member of the collaborative team, and the idea that comes out of that meeting of minds is something that neither one envisioned at the beginning. Those are the most fun. The other thing that I wanted to mention is the process, especially when you're doing something that has, music, choreography, and cinematic image. To render the idea and then to assess what you have, because you may not know. The intent sometimes is like a carrot that you follow, and it's always a distance from you, and it's on a stick. You can't ever reach it. But sometimes that carrot is to get you to the right place at the right time. So you have to, once the idea is rendered, you have to go above and look. I think some of the images that come out, you can't put an image in front of an audience without a story being developed. You know, whether it's linear or not, doesn't matter. Whether it was intended or not, it almost doesn't matter. The story is there. One thing that I saw that you might consider when you do this live, in the Alvord, you were going for an otherworldly experience. It wasn't lost on me. I don't know if everybody else saw this or not, but that otherworldly experience was in a gym with a prominent American flag. The current events and the political atmosphere, to me, was not lost on that image. And dragging something that we didn't know what at the beginning, and for that element that was being dragged to come to life and to dance with the main figure. That's a story. That's a story, whether you intended that or not. That's why in film, a lot of times they don't know what they have until they are in the editing room. And that's where the real film is made. So I'm not going to keep going on, but congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl. Thank you so much.
Jared, wow, I'm sitting here, first of all, let me tell you, musically, the project itself, this is really what another great project for the merger. This is really a clear statement to clear direction. Where should we go? And that piece, All Boy, I was here trying to listen as a panelist or whatever you want to call me, and I almost started crying. And I had that feeling with the beginning of Tristan Isolde when Daniela, my first daughter, was going to be born. And wow, I just, all of a sudden I saw your soul, everything clear, transparent. All the struggles also that you share with me, and all the victories. And man, you're an incredible artist, and you have found a voice, and it's a beautiful marriage between the movement, dance movement, and music. And your work is beautiful. I mean, there's so much beauty in this work.
Thank you.
And this is beyond, this goes beyond our, I feel even strange even saying something about this. This is something I would just run to see, and as she said, go to Oregon to visit.
Thank you.
And I can't help to finish with this. Nicholas Sparks said, life is like a song. And I wanted to give you this because this is what you remind him of. He said, life is like a song because at the beginning, there's mystery. And at the end, there's confirmation. But it's in the middle where emotions reside. And that's what makes life worthwhile. That's what you just did for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you.
Jerry, when we select 20 students in the whole world and put it together in a fully scholarship program for a year, make them study with the best artists in the world, you usually don't have to boost anybody's ego, but I really hope you know what an amazing artist you are.
Thank you so much, Marco. Thank you.
Jared Henderson.
Thank you.
Please stick with us for our next presentation at 12:30. Yes.
And by compounding works like yours and Isaac, and in a symmetrical way, two bass players, I think you guys could become the new line of thought to preserve nature and really deal with these topics and raise the bar level, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.